Hey, welcome back. We are sitting here with another Louisville legend.
It's a bit of a stretch, Jimmy.
I was talking about myself. I was talking about some people off camera that you don't see.
Not lacking in self-confidence, are you?
So for you all that know this podcast, it's called In Good Company. It's so important to surround yourself with good people and know their stories and know what makes them tick. And I, by pure accident, have become really good friends with the gentleman sitting across from me. He's the sports director for WLKY, Mr. John Kent Taylor.
The full name you went with.
Right.
That's impressive. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. Yep.
Welcome.
I'm nervous.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like you should be interviewing me. Let's get going. Tell the world who you are if they don't already know.
Well, I am right now the sports director at WLKY, the CBS affiliate here in Louisville. Been working in TV here for about 30 years, which sounds like a long time.
Yeah, when you say it out loud, it's really long.
Yeah, I worked at WLKY till about 2000, from about 1994 to 2000. Then I was at Wave TV, the NBC affiliate, from 2000 to 2022, and now back at WLKY. So,
and he's forced to be friends with me because our daughters are in the same class.
Yes, I'm actually, that's probably my main job as a sixth grade girls basketball coach at Anchorage.
How are we looking this year?
Well, we're 1-0 so far as of this taping, a 24-6 win. Much improved. Let's really dig into this.
Yeah.
So what we have is we've got some sixth graders now who are at the top of the food chain.
Right.
Because the last couple of years, starting as third graders, we played against sixth graders.
Even the third grade team did?
I feel like we did
it's like
a few teams.
Fourth, fifth,
a few
sixth
teams. So
yeah.
we've got the kids have grown. They're more mature. They understand what they're doing.
But who?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me strike the last comment. They've grown.
Right. Yeah. It's really funny to go from being literally the smallest girls on the court to last game is like, hey, we're actually taller than everybody.
Yeah. So it's been fun. But yeah Macy Smith is really our lockdown defender.
Yeah. She's the glove. That's funny. That is hilarious. All right. We pride ourselves in defense because we are offensively offensive. All three of my kids are.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Davis has some little swagger.
He can shoot it a little bit. Reese is a pretty good little athlete, too.
She's a nuisance.
Yeah.
Emerson's improved.
Reese played a game for me.
Oh, that's right.
And I welcome her back anytime. Yeah.
Well, let's since we're on kids, let's Miss Emerson, who is athletic, but probably more known for her theatrical talents.
She is my daughter. Emerson is quite a dramatic child. Yes. She is a singer. Mm-hmm. She's actually a pretty good singer.
Yeah.
Pretty good singer. I started booking her on some national anthem tours.
Did you really?
Well, a couple years ago, just through some connections and got her, she sang the national anthem before a Bellarmine men's basketball game. That was the first one she did at Freedom Hall.
Awesome.
And then she's done U of L women's basketball, U of L volleyball. She's done a couple of events.
Yeah.
She's unfazed.
She is.
She really is. It's very strange, but she is not fazed by anything going on around her.
I know. I feel like when I talk to her, I'm talking to like a 35-year-old woman.
Which, you might not talk to her that much.
Right.
But, yeah, because at her age, when I was her age, I was the shyest kid you would ever, hiding behind my mom's leg, like very, very shy.
That's interesting.
And that is not her. She's not shy.
And it's also not you now. Like
it's not. I've kind of done a little bit of a 180 there. Yeah.
What? And so did she just take the lead for Legally Blonde at Anchorage Theater?
She's going to. Yeah, she's one of the Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. So
good. The two girls that
she's actually been. She's done. She goes to St. Matthew's and works at an acting thing, and they've done some shows at the Iroquois Amphitheater. Which for anybody who's never seen a show there, and I'll be honest, I hadn't until a couple years ago. She was in The Wizard of Oz there.
Okay.
And I was thinking at the time, dear Lord, I've got to go see this. I've seen The Wizard of Oz how many times in my life? I got to go see this show 4 times in 4 nights. At that point, I think that's what that show was. It's like a Broadway show. So when that comes up in the summer, get your tickets because they did The Wizard of Oz, they did The Sound of Music, and last summer they did Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And now that was like a 9-show run.
Really?
But it's mostly adult actors, but they mix kids in with them so the kids will get an idea of how the adult actors handle stuff professionally. And
so is
really good
the amphitheater just the venue, or is there like a acting troupe?
It's just the venue.
Okay.
It's the venue they use. The acting
You call it a
company
troupe?
is out of it's out of St. Matthews.
Okay.
It's called Performing Arts Louisville. But she had she had kind of kid roles in. She was one of the Munchkins in the Lollipop Guild and the Wizard of Oz, and then she was one of the kids in Sound of Music, but she was one of the main narrators in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. But they're really excellent shows worth seeing.
I just kind of either remembered, and I might be wrong. Is that director Joey Craig's sister?
Yeah, Beth Hall.
Beth Hall, yep.
runs it,
Okay.
and she is Joey Craig's sister from Craig and Landreth. Yeah, Joey Craig is always there on opening night. Never misses it. Every
really?
time, yeah. I see him there every time on opening.
Joey's my car's actually there right now.
Yeah.
I love the Craigs and Craig and Landreth. All right, so we kind of got on a rabbit hole, or went into a rabbit hole with Emerson, but
Is that what you want? I thought that's what you wanted to talk about.
yeah. The real star of the family. Actually, you're probably the third most famous person in your family.
You can say that, yeah.
You married Connie Leonard.
So my wife also works in the news business. We met at Channel 32 back in the 90s. We both worked there. And then she went to Wave, and she worked there for 27 years.
Is it true that Anchorman is actually a fictional story of how you and Connie met?
It's not. That is actually not true.
It seemed very similar.
No, but it is not. No, that is not the case at all. I'll take some royalties.
Yeah, I think we need to talk to Will Ferrell about this.
Well,
yeah.
But she is currently working, doing some freelance work at WHAS TV. But yeah, we're both in the news business, which gets you used to strange hours,
Right.
Because when we first got married, basically, I think she was at that time the weekend news anchor at, or there was a time when she was the weekend news anchor at Wave, and I worked Monday through Friday. So basically, one of us worked every night.
Right.
And you don't see each other much. And then gradually, our schedule, we've had all kinds of different schedules. She did the morning show for a stretch, which I'm not sure I would recommend for anybody. That's insane.
Well, and then, I've never really thought about, like, I've until I met you, you consume the news, and these people aren't here giving it to you. And then I got to thinking, I was like, man, that is like, you're every Friday night, every Saturday, the little, your schedule is almost 100% predicated on what sporting events going on, and which then
how
lends
big
itself.
The game is, whether the team is winning or losing. This Saturday, as we're taping,
It's really ruining our golf game.
Basketball season starting right, and basketball and football. This is really the busiest time of the year because you have basketball and football overlapping
with legitimate college teams in our area and the high school sports.
Right, exactly. And high school sports, we do a lot of stuff, obviously, with high school football, and there is a high school football show every Friday night where we go to anywhere from 10 to 12, 13, 14 games. That goes all the way through. We block that out. It's 15 or 16 weeks, and it goes all the way through. The Friday after Thanksgiving is the last show pretty much every year.
Right.
It's, which is normally a holiday. Everybody else, that's another thing you get rid of. There are no holidays.
No holidays.
Right. Somebody's got to work every day. So there are no holidays, no normal time. There is a little bit of a slow time, and July is about it, really. That's about the size of it.
What is the hierarchy in the news station? Like, what is the premier job? What is everybody gunning for if they're in the world of news?
In the news, probably a news anchor.
Like a 5 o'clock spot?
Be like a 5, 6, 11 o'clock anchor.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And then obviously you're the sports director, so that's probably on the sports field.
Right. Now, with the sports job is a little different, and it's evolved quite a bit over the years to where you still will go out and shoot games. You take a camera out. You go to shoot a couple high school football games every week.
You're actually shooting it.
Yes. And that has, I've done that forever, but the sports director necessarily hasn't. That has changed in the last probably 15 to 20 years, to where it's kind of a thing where everybody kind of does everything now. And the business has gotten a lot younger. I mean, now they hire kids right out of college, even in this market, which is the top 50 market.
Right.
They'll hire kids right out of college. So, and it's it's a situation where there's maybe 5 or 6 companies that own pretty much most of the TV stations across the country.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
You have Gray, the company that owns Wave, owns, I forget the number, 140 stations maybe.
Okay.
Tegna owns quite a few. They own HAS here. Hearst, the company that owns WLKY, they own a number of stations, not quite as many as those. And
so even though it's national, I mean, you've got all these different local stations, regional stations, you're really pared down to like 6 people that are doing all the production all across the country.
Not necessarily that's where it's going.
Yeah.
There are a lot of these big companies like, when I was at Wave, for instance, the Gray, that company, they had cut back to where you would have, when I started, you'd have 3 people on cameras in the studio running every camera. You'd have a producer, a director, a technical director punching up things, the graphics and stuff. You'd have an audio person. You'd have all these, somebody rolling teleprompter. You'd have everything. By the time I left Wave, for instance, you basically could do a show with one person. One person in the control room. They would code it beforehand, and they just punch the buttons to go, like the different shots and the fonts and everything. They would just hit a button. There was not an audio person. There was all tied into the same thing. There'd be they have 14, 15 cameras throughout the studio, and they would just take different things.
I was this year old when I found this out.
You roll your own prompter.
Really?
Yeah. Now we don't do that at WLKY.
Right.
But
so is it just all technology? Is the technology just?
Well, it's a way of pairing that they get rid of 5 or 6. There's 5 or 6 people they don't have to pay.
Right.
And so they're streaming.
Well, obviously the economics.
So the company is making more money. Now that hasn't necessarily filtered down to the workers.
Right.
But that's their business model, and that it is what it is.
Yeah, I just assume there's somebody riding around on a boom truck and all the things that in my mind go on at a news station.
Another thing, probably the biggest change in 30 years is every station would have one satellite truck.
Right.
Okay. A satellite truck enables you to go anywhere and they just beam it up to the satellite.
Right.
You'd have live trucks, which would be tied in a microwave station, throughout the market where you could go. They'd use those on a day to do the live shots you see on the news at night. They would take a microwave truck, they put the mast way up in the air, they hit a certain, somewhere space throughout the market. We'd use those every day. Now you don't use those at all because every station has backpacks. There's different companies that have this. It's called LiveU, TVU. You literally take the backpack and the actual thing can be it's like this big. I mean, you turn it on, you connect, and you plug it into the camera.
Right.
And that's it.
And it gets sent to wherever it needs to go.
Wherever you are. Yeah. And they generally work really well. Which is huge because, just to give you an idea, back not too long ago, say you're covering a team in the NCAA tournament or one I did, for people who may remember if you're a little older, but it's one of the bigger games in U of L football history. It was right when they were starting to get good, and they played at Miami on a Thursday night.
Was that the rain game? Was it raining?
No, that was the Florida State game.
That was Florida State.
That was here.
Yeah, okay.
I was there for that too.
Yep.
But the Miami game was a couple years later, 2 years later, at Miami, Thursday night, huge game.
The only thing on TV.
Devin Hester had a couple they kept kicking to him. He had a couple. Remember? Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty big deal. So we have a satellite truck. We're using Miami satellite truck. It's in the Orange Bowl, the original Orange Bowl. We're using Miami satellite truck. They have a plug-in that they had they plug in outside, and then there's a plug on the field that you can plug in to use to do it. So we ended up doing a live shot for the news that night, but you have to be in that spot. With the backpack, you can go wherever you want. You can go anywhere. And so we're right next to the field, so they take me live. I literally I was like, well, I'll just grab somebody. We're on the Miami bench.
Yeah.
Devin Hester.
There he is.
on with me.
Right.
Turned out to be a pretty good NFL player.
Right.
But nowadays you could take your backpack and you can be
Right.
anywhere. Just all you have to do is turn it on and go. And at that point with the satellite truck also, you'd buy a window. You buy a 10-minute window on the satellite. Okay. Well, you'd have to be in contact with someone back at the station. They have to make sure they get it dialed up, the particular satellite. They have to see you. They have to hear you. All this stuff is part of the process.
Right.
You might have to feed back a tape beforehand and in the window to make sure they get it. Now, that's all out the window. Now you turn the backpack on, you're there, you still check to make sure they can see and hear you, but that's relatively a quick process. And it's not a matter of them dialing up the satellite or anything. And then for the video part of it, you just feed it back on the computer. In seconds, you can feed back video.
Yeah.
I have, for instance, just last year, there was a late U of L basketball game. I want to say, it was Florida State. I think it was an 8:00 game. It took forever. It was over at like 10:30, 10:40 or something. And I'm in the back of the room, my camera plugged in, feeding back the news conference live to the station, or, they're taking it as it's coming in, while I'm sitting on a computer in the back of the room, like editing highlights and sending them back to them so they can, and the turn is quick. You can actually attach them to the rundown of the show to where there's no, they can immediately run them on the air. So it's pretty amazing how quickly the technology has flipped
In less than 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I never entirely.
Again, going back to, I think of the news anchor as like this, like almost like a pseudo celebrity where, this whole production's going on around you, but you're literally showing up with a tripod, a camera, and a backpack and shooting your own stuff.
I'll tell you another good one. Another good one is the Notre Dame Louisville football game last year.
All right.
Okay. It was a 7:30 kick. I think it took, nowadays college football games take 3 or 4 hours. Another thing this doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. Like you shoot your own live shot. Like I am on the photo deck at L&N Cardinal Stadium with the camera on, like talking, and I'm waiting for Jeff Brom to come in the news conference, but I can see it on the big board behind me because they show it.
Right.
And so like right when he pops up, I throw to it. Well, we had another camera in the news conference with another backpack, TVU, and they take that right away.
Take it right over.
On the air, it looks seamless, but it's in the back. Like, think like I'm standing here. I'm like, I'll talk until he comes up, but I have no idea when he's going to come up.
Right.
And then I kind of see it out of my eye. And even the producer, I remember this night, the producer of the station, he's like, he didn't even know yet or hadn't told me, but like when I see it out of my eye, I can throw to it and then it goes, and it actually looks seamless.
So you had your camera, and then you had a camera set up at the conference.
Right. And then U of L has a completely separate thing that they just show it in the stadium. Right. It's there's a lot of behind the scenes craziness. You should see it every Friday night.
Right.
Is like that. From about 9 to 11 every Friday night is just total insanity. And it's a rush, but it's from editing, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 games to figuring out the final score of the game to looking like you're under control and getting out there on the set and then going through it and making sense of it. And stuff. I'll give just the other night, Monday night was a busy night for us. Monday, November 4th. Well, it was opening night for basketball. You had the Louisville women playing in Paris at 2:30, the Kentucky women at 5, Louisville and Kentucky, their season openers with new coaches at 7, Bellarmine playing at 7, Western Kentucky playing at 8, all this going on. And I think the Kentucky post package, like with the sound and everything, came back. It was while I was, it was like 11, 18, 19, something like that. It's a very tight turn, and it can be extremely stressful. The more you go through it, though, the less it affects you.
I'm stressed out listening to you and thinking about all the different components. I don't really get
stressed about it anymore. I'm like, it's either going to be there, it's not. It's going to be over at 11:35, no matter what happens. So we'll
just move
on to the next thing, and it's going to happen again the next time.
All right.
So.
Very interesting. Learning new stuff. How did you what path? Well, let's say I'm gonna ask the quintessential Louisville question.
Okay.
What high school did you go to?
St. X.
St. X. All right.
Class of 1989.
89. You are old.
Okay.
What? So, how many years did it take you to graduate? You didn't have to redshirt or anything, did you?
No.
Okay, good. What? How did you get into this path?
So I went to college at Miami of Ohio, the Harvard of the Midwest, and I was an intern during college. I was an intern one summer for the Louisville Redbirds. I knew I was always a huge sports fan. I was the kid who, for
people that don't know the Louisville Redbirds, that was the affiliate for the St. Louis Cardinals,
right, the original AAA team.
Was that Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, Ozzie Smith?
Hold on a minute, not yet. That was a little before.
Okay, gotcha.
Come on now, pump the brakes. So that was in like the 80s. This is in the 90s.
Okay.
So I did that, and I was always the big sports fan, though. The kid who could tell you every score on Monday of, and I went to St. Margaret Mary. I go to school on Monday, tell you who won every NFL game the day before. I watched a lot of sports. I mean, I knew a lot more about sports when I was a kid than I do now.
Right.
That's true. So I went to Miami. I was intern there. I was an intern one summer at Channel 32.
Okay.
And when I got out of school, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Something in sports.
Right.
I went back there as an unpaid intern.
Okay.
And
back to 32.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a little while. Then I just gradually started doing, editing, shooting. I did basically a news. The first on-air thing I did was this thing they had called at that point, every station will have like their slogan, like, they were the 24-hour news source was what they were. And so they would have someone on the desk overnight. Like my shift was 10:30 to 8:30, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And you'd sit there, and at that point they didn't have as many morning, like they didn't have a weekend morning news yet,
right,
like everybody does now. So literally you'd be in black, like the station would be in black from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. You just sit there and listen to scanners, if something happens. But you would do these 30-second news pops where you'd sit at this desk and pop and say, I've got to tell every 24-hour news source. I probably still have the tapes of some of those. And do that. So I would do that. That was the first thing I did on air.
Okay.
Then one Saturday, the sports guys were off, and I would help out with them. And I did the sports one Saturday. I had never done it. Like, I didn't do it in college. I didn't do it. I had a lot of help with it. But so I did that. And then I eventually got a job in sports. As actually Rick Van Hoos was the weekend guy who's now the main anchor, and Fred was the sports director. And so I got a job in sports, and then I just gradually started doing more and more. And then eventually I went to Wave in 2000 when they got the Derby contract, because they were beefing up their sports department. And I had covered that a number of years, and being from here, was... Because that's kind of a big deal. Well, it's also kind of a different animal covering that, so to speak. Just because where to go, what to do.
Right.
You go for the kids, and we've got a couple of younger people in our department now. One kid who's never done it before, and it'll be eye opening for him. Yeah. Well, you go. Another thing that people don't realize is this job, usually on a night, I'll go to bed at like 2 a.m. is relatively normal, because I get home at 12:30, 1 o'clock. Nobody gets home from work and goes right to bed.
Right.
Or not many people. So, you stay up for a while, you watch a little TV, then you go to bed. Well, but during the Derby, horses train there's a window.
Like 5 a.m.
now. Well, it's changed over the years, but right now the window is like 7:30 to 7:45.
Okay.
And at that point, the track is closed. Only Derby and Oaks horses are on the track from 7:30 to 7:45. So basically, for 2 weeks, not necessarily me, but someone has to be there from 7:30 to 7:45 every day.
That's crazy.
It's a tight turn.
Yeah.
So there's that, but just like where to go, who to talk to, how to act back there, that's all kind of a different thing. So that's part of the process too.
Well, and it's you kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of go in and out between being a sports anchor and being an event anchor, so to speak, because there's so much,
right?
So much going on at the Derby above and beyond the race.
Exactly. And it's not, I've noticed, I did it for 22 years at Wave where we would be on the air all day, Oaks Day, all day Derby Day. We're on the air.
Right.
Now, last year was the first time coming back to it at LKY where you can actually, it's much more enjoyable. I mean, you have to get there relatively early because it's not like you can, but you can, you're watching the race. You're not as locked in. I mean, I did for 20 something years. Connie, my wife, and I did the Derby post race show.
Okay.
Right after the race.
Did y'all do it together?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did it together on the first turn. It was great for the time because you're on the first, the iconic shot you see of the horses coming around the first turn of the Derby.
Yeah.
With the twin spires behind them. Like, that's what I'm looking at. Like, I have that picture on my phone every year of the horses coming around. And I would be plugged in listening to NBC's broadcast.
Right.
And had a TV in front of me watching that so I could see it and then watching it happen unfold right in front of you, which was pretty cool. But then right after they dump, you'd come on for it changed over the years. I mean, it'd be 30 minutes. I think it was an hour to start with. And
did Connie do the Derby this year too? I thought I saw
she did some stuff with HAS. She did a couple stories in the morning. She went out there and did that, but she actually was not out there for the Derby.
So that week is all like everybody associated with news is like all week, all hands on deck.
Well, it's worse at
other places
at Wave at NBC because you have it.
Right.
I remember when Emerson was really little, we had we had a babysitter. I think it was like $600 for the babysitter to stay at because she had to stay at her house,
right? Because
you're working late. I mean, there was a time when my schedule for that would be Friday morning, be there at like 8, get off at like midnight, and then be back Saturday morning at like 7, and get off at like 8:30.
Jeez.
And it's
crazy.
People are like, oh, you got to be so. I would always, honestly, the waking up on Derby Day and like actually getting up and getting in the shower and being on time would be like one of the great. I'd be like, okay, I made it. I made it. And funny story, not really funny, but this actually happened. One year, we did that, and Connie tripped on the stairs that morning and broke her toe.
Oh no.
But like she's on the air at 8. I think we went on at 8. She's on the air with a broken toe.
Right. It hadn't been seen by a doctor yet.
No. Just like
wearing it.
Yeah.
The show must go on.
True story. Yeah. All
right. That's crazy. When I do these things, I sit down and talk to somebody. I don't know where it's going to go. I thought we were going to just talk about what we are going to talk about.
Yeah, it's not all just sitting in front of it. It's not like the other thing you don't realize is that, like, for a night, I look at it like a nightly sportscast. You take, like, say for instance, I have 3 minutes at 6, generally 3.5 at 11. Most of the time, some nights, like last Monday, I might have had 8 or 9 minutes. It was like 2 segments, but every graphic that's in there, every word that's written, that's every piece of video. Yeah. You're writing that, you're editing that, you're doing all that, everything.
All right, let's go to the bloopers then. What is your biggest goof up that got put on air?
I don't know that I have.
Oh, look at this.
I mean, anything major. One time I was doing, you have to be careful, but one time I was doing a live shot, one that stands out. I was like a Friday night at a high school football game, the game of the week or something, and I lost IFB, which is what, that's where you hear them talking to you in your ear, and I lost it, and so I'm on, and something happened and I was like, what the, and they cut it right there.
Right.
When I just said, what the, that's all I said, but that might not have looked like that on the air.
Did they cut it because they heard you say like, what?
No, I didn't. They just happened that just happened to be where it cut. Gotcha. But then you go back and look at it, you're like, oh, okay.
That's pretty funny. What's your favorite broadcasting memory? Like what event, what game?
Well, I'll tell you. Okay, my favorite things to cover have been the things where, and I've seen quite a few major events, but the things where everyone is pulling for the same thing.
Right.
Like, for instance, the Olympics. I covered and this was a different world because nowadays this would never happen. They wouldn't spend the money. I mean, I think it was over $100,000 they spent to send us. I went to the Olympics in Salt Lake City, an NBC event, working away I was there for 3 weeks.
Right.
Covered, everything. And we had one guy from Jeffersonville, Doug Sharp, who was on the U.S. bobsled team.
Right.
They had two teams. The U.S. had not won a medal in bobsledding since, I think it was 1956. They hadn't won a medal, and they won 2 medals. And I was actually at that, as a local affiliate, you could go to a few events. You can't go to everything, but like they'd pick and choose, who's, has a story here. You can go to this and cover this. And so I was actually at the bottom of the bobsled, like right at the bottom of it when they come in, and then they won the medal. And like that just, is ingrained in my memory, like the celebration there, because it was so cool. And I had, as a test for that, the only other event I covered was downhill skiing. And I'm in, like, they call it the mix zone, where they have the reporters standing, and you see like the athletes will just
say that again.
They call it the mix zone. What they call it. Mix.
Okay.
So like the athletes will come through and they'll go to, like, there's all kinds of countries there, they'll go through each one and then they'll talk. And I interviewed Peekaboo Street after her last run in the downhill.
Right.
That was the first event that I covered. Then I went back and did the bobsled team, and that was awesome. They won a medal, and just that whole event every day. We're going. There were live locations at like Deer Valley and downtown on top of the NBC station there, where you see downtown Salt Lake City, and they had all these banners on buildings and stuff. That was just a cool event. That even though we stayed in a Motel 6 all week. Seriously, for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks. But that was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
It had a big spread for y'all.
Something I remember. And then the other two that jump out are the Ryder Cup here.
Okay.
In 2008, because everybody's pulling for the same thing.
Right.
And
was that the year of the storm? We
had no power. I had no power at home.
Right.
For most of that week.
Okay.
And yet you're going, and those days are, like, we just did the PGA, and those days are, it's like you get there at maybe 8 or 8:30, and then you go till 11:30 or 12 every night.
Right.
That's just what it is.
Your practice
for
round
7 days. For 7 days. It starts Monday and it goes all the way through Sunday, but it's fun. It's not like it's hard to do.
So as a sportscaster, you said you enjoy it because everybody's pulling for the same thing. You don't get to be a sports fan all the time.
No, you don't. Well, one more thing I want to tell you though is the when American Pharoah won the Belmont in 2015 is a memory that I'll never forget, because a lot of different factors. I had been a couple times to the Belmont when a horse had the chance, Big Brown pulling up and didn't even run, California Chrome. You're kind of, you get to the point, I'll have another, didn't run. They scratched him the day before. You get to the point where you're like, this isn't going to happen. It hadn't happened since 1978. It's not going to happen. And when American Pharoah won, the roar from the crowd, I can still hear it. It was like minutes long.
Really?
Just people going crazy. And a little bit extra to that story, Darren Rogers from Churchill Downs was there with the Triple Crown trophy, which was like this unassuming little trophy.
Right.
But they couldn't change it because no one had ever won it.
Okay.
So they would have it every year. He would bring the trophy.
Right.
He'd have his white gloves and he'd bring the trophy. Well, so I went up on the stand with him where they had the trophy. So we are literally on the finish line. Of on the rail, on the finish line. At the Belmont, they have like a stage where they'll have like concerts. They have concerts like right in the middle of the grandstand. And the Goo Goo Dolls did a concert beforehand. So it's like us and the Goo Goo Dolls watching the Belmont.
Right.
And then he wins and the place goes crazy. And that was pretty cool.
Why is Louisville? Why is the Derby and the pomp and circumstance, Preakness and the Belmont, it's not the same level of race for those cities as the Derby is for us?
Well, the Derby winner, it gets big if there's a Triple Crown, but you're right. It's not the same thing. It's just part of, horse racing in Kentucky is, there's only a few pockets around the country where it is that big, but it's just ingrained in this community.
Right.
And the Derby, that event, those 2 weeks, the Kentucky Derby Festival, it's just part of the fabric of this place. Right. And so, that's why it's so special. They have, their moments, and I've been to all of them. And I went to the Preakness from 2000. There was a stretch I probably went for 10 years straight. Right. I would go and it's just different. It's like the opposite of what the Derby was, where I said, the Derby would be like, 16, 17 hour days every day. At the Preakness, when we went to cover that, we would go on a Wednesday. We'd be at the track. We'd get there at like 5 o'clock in the morning or something and be there from like 5 to 9 and then just send back some stories for the day.
Right.
And then be done and then go to bed and get up and do it on Friday. And then Saturday we would just go and you wouldn't do anything until after the race. But you had to get there early. So we'd be there. It's not the same. You don't have any trouble getting around. You can go wherever you want.
Now, are they moving locations? One of them getting Preakness or Belmont is getting an upgrade, right?
The Belmont is, yes.
Okay.
The Preakness needs it. It's like going back in time. It's in Baltimore.
Yeah.
The facility itself is, they only use it a couple weeks a year, and you can tell. Now, right. They both needed upgrades. The Belmont has it's just a beautiful place. It's a huge expanse of land. It's massive.
Yep.
And it is right now undergoing a major renovation to where the Belmont's at Saratoga. It was at Saratoga last year, and it's going to be at Saratoga for at least a couple of years. So,
what? Where do we want to go? Oh, you know what I want to ask you about? How important?
No comment.
No comment. Yeah. Who'd you vote for last night? With this airs, don't answer that question. Jeff Brom coming back to the city of Louisville. How big a deal in the sport? Is that just a Louisville feel-good story, or is it a big deal in the sports world?
It was huge for a number of reasons. I've known him. I honestly can remember playing a basketball game at St. Barnabas in like 4th or 5th grade, and we played St. Bernard, and this kid's like going behind his back and dribbling and stuff. So that's how long I've known him.
Okay.
And then I actually did one of the other things I've done over the years is I've done a lot of these, I've done a lot of coaches shows.
Right.
Where the first one I ever did was Inside the Fire. It was on cable for the Louisville Fire.
The arena football.
Yes. And he was his first head coaching job.
Okay.
So
not when he was a quarterback and he got knocked out.
No. That was the XFL.
XFL, yeah.
For the XFL, so that was an NBC thing.
Right.
They were tied in with the XFL and Vince McMahon and when they did that. And so they would have like a game of the week. And if the Orlando Rage weren't on the game of the week that was actually showing on TV, the entire Brom family and other, they would come to the station and we would set up a thing for them to watch the game.
Gotcha.
To watch the Orlando Rage games. Like that happened a couple times. So I've known him for a while, and when he got hired on Bobby Petrino's staff, when Petrino got the job at Louisville, and then throughout his time here, and then whatever happened there, and then he's so successful as a head coach at Western and Purdue and Louisville. So it's big to have someone who wants to be here,
right?
And a lot of times people get mad here. It never really got back on the rails for Scott Satterfield when he talked to South Carolina,
right?
When he was here, because people are like, that's like unforgivable. Yeah. You can't look for, a different job, right? Whatever, you can't do that. And there's a sense that Brom won't do that.
Right.
And he's also a really innovative, good coach who wins and plays an exciting style, because it was the same thing with basketball with Kenny Payne, but just they didn't win, and it wasn't exciting to watch, and it didn't last.
Didn't last. Yep.
There's two sides to it.
Yeah, it was. Yep. Let's do a lightning round.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. I want to put you on the spot. What is, if you were going to do a different career, what would it be?
I think I might be a lawyer.
Really?
My dad is a lawyer.
Okay.
I have two. My parents got divorced when I was a little kid. I have a stepfather who's been my stepfather since 1977. So
Okay.
I have one father who's a doctor and one who's a lawyer.
Okay.
I probably would have been a lawyer.
What was your degree in?
English journalism.
Okay. English journalism?
Well, we took some sports. We kind of created the degree. We took some sports and leisure classes and stuff like that, and along with a lot of English journalism and things like that.
English journalism, like the language, or like the style,
and journalism.
English and journalism. Gotcha.
Yes.
Wow. I'm not firing off cylinders today, buddy. I'm
Celtic
sorry.
languages.
What's your favorite thing to do on a Sunday afternoon?
Watch the Broncos.
Watch the Broncos. Ooh. You did not
Just
enjoy
relax.
that.
Sundays are basic for in my chosen career path. Sunday's about the only day you have off, generally.
Okay.
So I do like to sit and watch
All right. Why are you a Broncos fan?
So my dad, I said my parents were divorced. My dad moved to Denver in 1983 when John Elway was a rookie.
Okay.
And so I am I've been a Broncos fan since then. I was a huge John Elway fan.
Okay.
So much so that my dad and I went to Canton when he was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame, even though it was on my anniversary, whatever year that was.
Whatever.
So
was Connie okay with that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I assume. I don't know. She's still around.
She's still around.
Still around.
So actually, I don't know why we're friends. I hate John Elway. No, I don't really hate him.
That's going to be a problem.
I grew up as a Browns fan.
Well, we're not friends anymore. That would be the answer to that.
All right.
Because boy, The Drive. Are you kidding? I watch it every year. That was so fantastic.
But see, the Mile High Miracle is kind of apropos because the Ravens were the Browns.
I don't want to talk about that.
All right. What's your favorite app on your phone?
The one I use the most is Twitter.
Twitter?
We or X.
X.
In our business, we use that especially. It's huge on Friday nights because they'll put scores for high school games to follow someone who might be at a game and check on, how long that touchdown was and stuff like that. Breaking news, you get it immediately from, national reporters who are covering things.
Right.
It's changed a little bit in the last couple years, but it's still definitely a good resource for us. So, I mean, and I'll look on Instagram. I don't use that many. I don't play games on my phone. I don't do anything like that.
Again? No.
I use that, yes.
All right.
To check my handicap, make sure it's lower than yours. I'll check your scores to make sure you're not lying when you post your scores.
Yeah, I wish I could lie. Favorite Super Bowl halftime show?
I'm not huge into the Super Bowl halftime show, but I guess I would say my most memorable is Lady Gaga because I can remember seeing my daughter dressed up like her, dancing around, singing the songs, and she was pretty little at that point. So
that's funny.
That was big.
If you could have dinner with anybody, who would it be?
Dinner with anybody,
dead or alive?
How many?
I'll give you 3.
John Elway.
Okay.
Probably take JC.
The carpenter.
Take Jesus
Christ. Okay.
John Elway.
That'd be an interesting dinner.
The Last Supper.
Yeah.
And then
good night.
Who else? If you could have anybody.
Are these 3 individual dinners or all 3 of you eating together?
Get them all 3 together.
Okay.
You know what? I've never seen Elway and JC in the same room.
Yeah. John Elway. So a quarterback, a carpenter, a newsman were sitting around at dinner. It sounds like a bad joke.
And then, maybe like Martin Luther King. I feel like he'd be a good guy to have dinner with.
Martin Luther King, not Martin Luther.
No, Martin Luther King, yes.
King. Okay. That would be an interesting conversation. What would you have? What would you serve at that dinner?
I mean, I'm a pretty basic guy. I'll go with this steak and
potatoes, meat and potatoes. All right. Favorite TV show?
All time? I do watch a number of TV shows. I might say Seinfeld. All time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you watching now?
Not real lightning, is it? I just finished The Diplomat. I mean, now it's the streaming service. The Diplomat is fantastic. The problem is these shows come out and like there was only 6 shows in the second season. So now I'm finished. I'm ready for the next thing. Yellowstone's restarting. I really like that at the beginning.
Kind of got long in the tooth
now where we're going, but
yeah, because Costner's not even on there anymore.
all time. I will tell you this: you want a good
All time.
Have you watched The Americans?
Oh yes, the hold on, let me get it right. The 1960s
Russian
Cold War,
spies,
Russian spy
yes,
war. Yeah,
that's good.
yes. I feel like I fell off on that. I don't think I finished watching it.
That's one of the better shows. I mean, Breaking Bad. If people haven't watched that, you can start that from the beginning. Yeah. I've seen a number of shows.
Favorite high school rivalry here in Louisville?
St. X Trinity.
Okay.
I actually wrote the foreword. There's a book about the game.
Yeah.
And I wrote the foreward for
What is the liquor? What's the liquor store on Poplar Level Road right there?
Our place.
That they
On
sell
Poplar Level.
on the left. If you're heading towards
No, it is
St.
Poplar Level.
Yeah,
Our place.
Our place. Yeah,
Yeah.
they sell it there. Yeah,
Oh, they do?
yeah.
Well, open that up next time or buy yourself a copy. I'll sign it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my last guest gave me a signed copy of a book they wrote. Favorite restaurant in Louisville?
Jack Fry's.
Okay, one thing you can not live without. Your satellite backpack? Water. Yeah, thank you.
Air.
You're an idiot. Favorite national championship team?
Favorite national championship team? I'm going to go way back. And I've covered, actually been in the arena courtside for national championships actually I was there in 96 when Kentucky won.
Okay.
Not 98. I was here working here. I was there in 2013.
Was that 96, 97, 98? Was that right? Did they go
I was
to the
there in
final
96. I was there in 97 in Indianapolis when they lost to Arizona in the championship game in overtime. And in 98, I was like at the station. I just didn't make the trip to San Antonio. And then in 2012, I was sitting I was sitting behind, you know who Bob Ryan is? He's been on sports. He's on ESPN still. He's
like a younger version of Howard Schnellenberger.
Yeah, I can see that. But he was retiring, I think, from the Boston Globe or Boston Herald or something. And they actually showed him on the big board in the Superdome, and I was right behind him. Like, it was like me and him.
Yeah.
Showed him. So for the 2012 championship.
Is that Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was, Kentucky and Louisville played in the Final Four. So I was there for that. And then 13 in Atlanta, obviously covering that. But my favorite of all time is the 80 championship team because I remember that as a kid.
Yeah.
That was like the very first vivid memories I have as a kid watching basketball, watching, Darryl Griffith. And I can tell you everything.
Purvis Ellison.
Purvis Ellison was 86.
Oh, 80.
80 was Darryl Griffith and Jerry Eves and Wiley Brown and Derek Smith. And Derek Smith, I knew him as a kid. Mm-hmm. I went to his camps. He had a camp at the JCC right down the road here from your office. So this is longer than lightning.
Right.
So I went to his camp, and when I was doing a story on him, he passed away in 1996 during the PGA. It was 34 maybe. He had a heart attack on a cruise ship. So we were doing, I did, when I was at Wave, one of the things that I got them to rerun the 1980 championship game because we had a beta tape of it, the entire game.
Okay.
Nobody else had it was on our air because back then NBC had the Final Four.
Okay.
It was before CBS got it.
Yep.
So we actually had, it was like a big beta. It was an hour and a half beta tape.
Okay.
We had the entire game. So part of the deal, we wanted to run it. So we ran it as part of the 25-year anniversary in 2005. And the deal for them to let us run it on our air was we had to give them the copy, and they made the DVDs that they sold.
Okay.
So
you had to give up your original copy.
So but I mean, even if you see it, there's a crawl across it that says "Wave the cards home" at Freedom Hall.
Okay.
So we did that, and then we also ran it again during the pandemic.
Okay.
In 2020, as part of the 40-year anniversary.
Okay.
On a Saturday night, and did a show with it and did Zoom calls. Anyways, so but one of the stories that we did, part of that was a story on Derek Smith, and we're going back and looking at this video, and there's a video of him at a camp at JCC where he makes a shot from half court, and Wave happened to be out there talking to him that day. And a 13-year-old me gets up and high fives.
That's awesome.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my team. That's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, that was not a lightning question
Sorry.
answer. That's all right. No. Well, but you did take me down something that I do want to touch on.
Yeah.
The impact of Denny Crum
Oh, yeah.
on not only Louisville, but basketball, the college basketball.
The city of Louisville,
Yep.
huge, because he showed us that they could win the big prize. You know, they had, and the fact that he came here, stayed here, took this job, and he actually, as a kid, like looking up to him so much, and then in this business, getting to, know him a little better behind the scenes, and see all the charity work he did. That was pretty cool. That was a big part of it. But yeah, the fact that he came in right away, took him to the Final Four the very first year.
He was an assistant at UCLA.
Assistant at UCLA under John Wooden. Recruited Bill Walton, and they won 7 national championships in 10 years and 10 overall.
Had some big names come through. Lee Corso,
Corso, yeah.
Schnellenberger, Muhammad Ali,
Rick Pitino, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, he came through twice.
Muhammad Ali. I have a
Pee Wee Reese.
I have a picture with Muhammad Ali. I never met with Pee Wee Reese.
Yeah.
I've got a picture with Muhammad Ali though. It was back when they would spend some money at before the Olympics. They flew in. Wave flew in Muhammad Ali and Bob Costas to an event at what was then Papa John's Cardinal Stadium in the Brown and Williamson Club. And they did this big event, and afterwards, I just wanted to get a picture. I was like, I want to get a picture with Ali. And the story is, Connie she's like, yeah, I want to get a picture too. Well, she had to go to work.
Okay.
So she left. So I'm still there. He is like upstairs taking pictures with people and stuff. He comes out, and I'm like, yeah, I just want to get one picture. And they're like, one picture. And I just wanted to get a picture like this of me and him. He takes my hand, so it's like this. I'm punching him, and he's punching me. And
awesome.
That's the one picture I have of Muhammad Ali, which is pretty cool.
Where's that hanging?
I've got it in my office. I used it during COVID. I would work from home.
Okay.
I worked from home for like 6 months or something. It was right behind me.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
I've always liked, like, you go and watch sportscasters on ESPN, and they've got
see all the stuff behind it. Yeah. Well, I've also got a picture of him in Trinity's gym.
Okay.
That Dan Dry took. That's signed by Dan Dry. I've got some Ali 2 boxing gloves with a signed credential from the Ali Cup that they used to have downtown.
Okay.
That's behind there too. And then of course the main thing is my John Elway signed jersey.
Your John Elway.
And I've got a couple of those.
Vomit.
I've got one. Yeah. I have one of those where it was an event in North Carolina where he was going to be there. Rick Riley,
right?
You know who that is? He was a writer for Sports Illustrated. Like he'd write the thing in the back. You'd read every week when he got Sports Illustrated. He was getting into the Hall of Fame of this organization, and Elway was his presenter.
Okay.
And I was going for something, and I was like, well, they have like silent auction items, and you go to these events, you don't know where these silent auction items come from. I mean, I would usually not buy something there because anybody could sign it. But I'm thinking he's here.
Right.
He clearly signed this jersey, So I bought the jersey in the silent auction. Then I have a picture of me and him with me holding the jersey.
Okay.
That it's like, inside the frame of the jersey. It's pretty cool.
Kind of like when I gave you one of these shirts. I should sign that for you.
Kind of, sort of, but not really at all.
Nowhere close. Ken, I always enjoy my time with you. I appreciate you coming by and play golf sometime in the near future.
It's Jimmy, right?
Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
James.
you.
James. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.